What is next for AI and how are we making it safer? And how can we take all those advancements and make the world better for all of us, including the roads we travel? I'm Vincent Vanhoucke, distinguished engineer at Waymo. Two of my favorite things in life is to have a great cup of coffee and talk about AI. So let's do both and learn a lot along the way. In this new series, I'm talking with old friends and new, from roboticists to neuroscientists to startup founders. We're going in depth and exploring AI's advancements and how autonomous vehicles like Waymo intersect with it. And what better place to talk about AI than inside an embodied AI? So join us for the journey and all the delicious destinations in store. This is AI in Motion. Today's guest is Carolina. I've known her for 14 years and she's one of the most brilliant people I've met. She's worked on speech recognition, autonomous driving, and robotics at Google and NVIDIA. I couldn't be more excited to have her on as our first guest as she visits us from Colorado.
Hey Vincent!
Hey Carolina!
Thanks for picking me up!
Welcome back to San Francisco.
Thank you!
Should we go and get coffee?
Sounds great!
Let's go!
This is so fun.
All right. When was the last time you've been on a autonomous car?
Autonomous car, maybe 7 years ago actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
A lot has changed since.
Yeah.
A lot has changed. I'll give you a bit of context for this series. You are our very first guest.
Thank you.
The reason we're doing this is there is a ton of talking about AI everywhere, basically. But one of the things that I think is the most exciting about what's happening in AI today is really this embodied AI revolution that is unfolding. And it's nascent. It's not completely out there in the public eye quite yet. So we wanted to talk about embodied AI and bring a number of experts like yourself to discuss what can embodied AI become, what can it do for the world, and what is likely going to change as a result of those advances in AI at large. So you and I, we've known each other for like 14 years?
A long time.
A long time. But for the benefit of our audience, can you introduce yourself and talk a bit about your career and what you're doing now?
Sure. So I'm Carolina Parada. I lead the Google DeepMind Robotics team. I met you 15 years ago around when I joined the speech team at Google, right out of PhD actually. And there we worked together on like building the next generation of voice search actually. Voice search was introduced back then. We built a lot of technology in speech recognition, all basically powered by deep learning. So it was the revolution back then was in speech. And I was there for about 7 years. And then I moved to NVIDIA, where I worked on self-driving cars actually for a couple of years as a perception lead in their self-driving car team. And then about 7-8 years ago, I moved back to robotics, which is like what's in my heart. And so I've been working since then on general purpose robotics and embodied AI.
Cool. So you're originally from Venezuela.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was a few months ago a judge on a robotics high school contest, and Team Venezuela, they were absolutely killing it. They had so much energy, they were doing absolutely great. I think they came in second of the entire worldwide competition. Was that you back in high school?
Actually, yeah, there were no robotics teams back in high school when I was there. I actually was just visiting my nephews and my nieces, and we met in Colombia, and my nephew is actually in a robotics team. So I don't know, maybe he was the one that you were seeing. He's actually going to a lot of competitions right now. So I'm super excited that this has taken off more in South America. But back when I was there, there was just like...
So what got you interested in the robotics?
Yeah, honestly, like I just got excited. It sounds cheesy, but I got excited by watching cartoons of robots doing stuff for us, you know? And you're a kid and your parents are asking you to do your chores and you're like, no, Mom, I'm gonna build that thing that's gonna do the chores for me. So I just got inspired by what I was seeing as possible, and that inspired me to go into engineering. So I got a degree in electrical engineering, and then I got a master's in control systems, and then eventually went into deep learning, and that took me in a bit of a different path through speech recognition, but I came back as I wanted to.
You worked on autonomous driving
Yep.
for some time. Robotics is, autonomous cars are kind of special kinds of robots. What's the big differences that you've seen between robotics and autonomous driving at large?
Right. There's a lot of things that are different and a lot of things that are similar, right? Certainly, an autonomous car is a robot with fewer degrees of freedom, and it works in a more structured space. So like there's lanes and there's traffic lights and there's rules of the road that one might think make things a little bit simpler for controlling. At the same time, when you work on self-driving cars, you realize like the streets are incredibly diverse. The signage across the world is incredibly diverse. The weather patterns make it incredibly challenging. And then humans. Anytime you're in close interaction with humans, that's very hard. So there's a lot of really hard things about self-driving cars. In the general purpose robotic space, there's just less structure, right? These robots can go anywhere. I'm right now focused on indoor robots, so they're in everyday human spaces where there's no lanes, no rules, no traffic lights to go around the corner. And so you need a lot more of like care to the social interaction aspect. Although even in self-driving, there's also social interaction, right? Because you're interacting with other.
You have to interact with other drivers and sort of anticipate what they're doing, understand what they might do in the future and how they might react to your own actions, things like that. In the indoor robotic space, there is a lot more potential for very complex interaction as well. How do you guys think about safety in the context of robotics at large? I know it's a big topic.
Yeah, I'll start by saying we're big fans of Waymo's safety strategy, and actually in many ways we use it as an inspiration to our safety strategy. We definitely believe safety has to be like built in from the start, which is something that I think Waymo did really well. So you don't like build the entire robot and then you make it safe, but you're actually building a safe robot from the start. So that's one thing. The other thing is that similar to Waymo, we have many different layers of safety. So we think about if a robot is interacting in a human-centric space, then you need to care about content safety, like what the robot is saying. You need to care about
What do you mean by content safety?
Oh, I mean like basically the robot needs to be able, the same way that when you interact with a chatbot, you want that interaction to feel safe and stay and remain helpful to the user. Similar, a robot is basically a physical chatbot, right? So content safety is still important. We can't ignore that. Then we have semantic physical safety. What I mean by that is that there's all kinds of common sense that as humans use, right? Like for example, if we see a big puddle on the floor, we don't just walk right over it, or a banana peel, we actually go around it. Or if we're trying to put something on a table, we're not going to put it right at the edge when it's about to fall. So those are semantic safety that just becomes more relevant in a physical context. And then of course there is the traditional robotic safety, which is like, avoid collisions or do collisions in a way that it's not going to hurt the environment or the robot. So limit forces and also like remain stable, right? If you have a robot that is mobile, you need to make sure that it's stable. So there's many different layers that we think about through the entire process of building the robot.
It's always been fascinating to me that the whole safety problem operates at so many different levels of abstraction and how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
Understanding semantically what can be a risk to the interaction and realizing that in motion and how you actually go. It feels like an AI complete problem where everything has to be understood at a level that is very deep, not just, don't bump into things. There's a semantic component to it.
Yeah, it's incredibly deep, and I think very similar to probably how it works in self-driving cars at this stage, because back when I was working on self-driving cars, we were just making sure that we could detect lanes and, signs and traffic lights, but now we have advanced so much that what matters is all of those out-of-distribution cases, all of those cases that you've never seen on your training data. And that matters for both robotics and obviously self-driving cars.
We often talk about the long tail of things and how the long tail really dominates the equation in terms of how we reason about the environment and what constrains the decisions that we make. In robotic manipulation, I can imagine that you're in a place right now where a lot of things are starting to work well enough that you have to really think about the unintended consequences, a long tail of things.
Yeah, I mean, once you start unlocking like more general purpose robots, then now they're able to do many different things, interact with many different objects, be in more human-centric spaces, and that just increases the bar for the level of safety that you need to be thinking about. Is basically going to be the default that you're going to be interacting with things you've never seen before, and so you need to be able to be robust and maybe even detect you're in a situation that you can't handle. We have a lot more interactivity with many different objects that makes the safety problem very complex. But in many ways, self-driving, I think, is similar in that you have to interact with a lot of situations you've never seen before.
So there is a ton of excitement right now around embodied AI. A lot of new, funding coming the way of robotic startup. A lot of focus on AI and robotics. What do you think are the main drivers of that? What are the big trends that you see are changing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like we're in a different context of robotics than when I started, at least. I mean, many of that has been basically fueled by the team at Google DeepMind Robotics. So like we were first introducing, as you were there as well, we were first introducing VLMs and large language models and foundation models into robotics, and all of a sudden that opened the possibility that robots could understand humans. They could understand natural language, they could interpret a scene, things that before you had to hard code into a robot. And so that makes it a lot more accessible to many different applications. And then we also introduced like the concept of VLAs, which is this visual language action models that transfer knowledge from web concepts that they've never seen, like a robot has never physically seen, but yet it can take action. So you might ask the robot, put all the pencils together, and now it understands what that means, even though no one actually physically taught that a specific sentence of put the pencils together.
Can you maybe explain a little bit more in depth what a VLA is?
Yeah, so a VLA is a visual language action model. When people talk about AI, they're usually using a multimodal AI. They're using a VLM, which is a visual language model. So a visual language model is able to understand the world from vision and language and be able to reason about it. So you could ask it, how many cars are in this image? A visual language action model actually goes a step further. It actually takes all of that knowledge and then also transfers it into action. So you could ask, for example, pick up all of the crayons of the same color, and it should understand that it needs to actually move the robot in order to pick up different things that have the same color. So the output of a VLA is the actions that move the robot. The output of a VLM is the reasoning trace of what the answer is to that question. So that enables you to transfer a lot of information from the semantic space, from the multimodal and world models into the action space, making the model a lot more general. So that's what enables general purpose robots.
It always struck me that this perspective of VLAs really has the potential to break the data problem that we have in robotics. For a very long time, we were trying to bring AI and robotics together, and data was always the bottleneck. Is it still the case that data is the bottleneck, or do you think VLAs and those general class of approaches is changing that?
I mean, definitely VLAs have enabled things we never thought possible, because now you can do tasks that, generally you don't have in the training data, which before was simply impossible. But having said that, I think there's still some breakthroughs that would need to happen in order to actually fully be able to scale to the level that any other foundation model can. So today we still are actually taking foundation models that are built like VLMs and then adding some real data from robots in order to adapt them. I think there are breakthroughs needed in terms of learning, for example, from human videos, like humans doing tasks. Robots should be able to learn from that and then maybe use a little bit of adaptation in order to adapt to a robot. We're still not there yet. I think there's still breakthroughs to be had. We're starting to see a lot of hints of progress and actually starting to learn a little bit from simulation, learn a little bit from videos, but it's still not as simple as you can just, like in many cartoons, you have the robot watching the video in YouTube and then it can actually do it themselves. Like, we're not there yet.
There is a lot of excitement right now around this general idea of world models, which is essentially using videos to predict the future in general. Do you think it's going to have a big role in robotics?
I do, yeah. Yeah, world models are basically these models that allow you to not only understand the world, but also explore it. So you can actually, in order to build a world model, you actually have to have an understanding of physics and understanding of temporal dynamics and spatial dynamics. So in a way, the model is learning a lot of physics that might be really important for robotics. So there's many ways, and we're actually actively exploring how to leverage world models better. And they're actually already being useful, even for like evaluating policies and even for like creating data that robots can leverage. So it's already starting to, yeah.
It just feels like a much harder problem to solve.
Yeah,
the
that's
problem
true.
of world modeling compared to acting in the real world.
That is true. I mean, in many ways, like modeling the entire world is extremely hard. I think what we're seeing right now is if you have to, for example, evaluate your every change on your policies on a robot, that's also extremely hard. So anything that you can do that will help you leverage world models to do that, for example, will be a huge time savings, will help you iterate quite a bit on your models. Same with like generating data. In many scenarios, like world models are getting so good that I'm actually impressed myself how far we've come. So we're leveraging them in many ways actually in robotics now.
So you're confident that they're getting mature enough that this is something...
They're already helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
A lot of the questions that I see people ask in robotics right now kind of revolve around humanoids are everywhere. Everybody is talking about humanoids.
Yeah.
Huge amounts of investments that are going into humanoid form factor with the promise of a generalist robot. Where do you land on the generalist versus specialist?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that we need to go after solving the general problem of physical intelligence. Like basically you want to be able to reach a point where you can reason in the real world, and you need to reason about how to move in that world in order to do tasks. So I am definitely more on the, you want to build the generalist model. So I'm a believer that we're going to have many, many different form factors actually, and humanoid is going to be just one. There's a lot of attention on them. They're moving extremely fast in terms of like the hardware evolution. So I think there will be a prominent option, but I believe that there will be many different robot types that they will adjust and adapt to different use cases. So for example, if you're trying to unload a truck, probably you can do that much more efficiently with a different kind of robot. Or if you're trying to do something at home, then it might be easier to have something that can go into any human-centric space. But yeah, I believe that there will be many different types.
The ultimate specialist robots. Right
exactly.
Now. But it's interesting how this focus on general purpose robot is kind of fueling really sort of new research. I feel like because the form factor affords a lot more diversity of behaviors, suddenly we see completely new areas of research that people didn't even consider before. Do you see that diversity really fueling, being an inherent part of the progress that's being made?
Yeah, I mean, we've always believed that we want to solve general intelligence. That's what we've been going after, is how to solve AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And my team is focused on how to solve AGI in the physical world. So we do believe that we want to be solving it in a way that requires being able to solve many, many different tasks. Even if the embodiment can be specialized, we believe the intelligence should be capable of quickly adapting to even different embodiments and then being able to operate in that way. And then you might have a process of like doing some application specific optimization, right, to make sure that it's safe and that is optimized in terms of performance and latency and whatnot to that particular application. But I think in order to build something truly general and truly intelligent, it has to be able to handle a very diverse set of applications, very diverse set of environments.
When people started really being focused on this humanoid form factor a few years ago, we saw a lot of people in the research community and in companies really trying to focus on applications to logistics and industrial robotics and things like this. And all of a sudden it feels like everybody's folding laundry instead. And the shift has been towards more home uses.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going to sort of make an impact on the world first?
Yeah, I definitely think the home will not be the first place that it will make impact. Not necessarily because we can't solve many different problems in the home soon, because the technology is moving incredibly fast, but mostly because the home requires different level of safety and privacy and security that will just take some time to mature. In the same way, actually, Waymo took several years in order to get to the level that is like just absolutely impressive, that we can navigate San Francisco here without anyone at the wheel, right? So I think the home will be one of those later frontiers, and we can start doing quite a bit in many different spaces: logistics, manufacturing, retail, even then moving into like healthcare, like things that are a little bit more structured, but also have a big diversity of tasks. Like I've been in many of these different spaces, and the diversity is huge. I mean, everything that is simple in those spaces has actually already been automated. So when we're talking about logistics, we're talking about the hard things in logistics. When we're talking about automotive, it's the really hard cable handling, picking and putting things into areas that are actually just really hard to automate. So those spaces also have really hard problems. So I expect the impact there to come first, yeah.
I'm trying to picture what it would take for me to have a complex, multi-limbed robot in my house, and the bar it would have to meet. Right? I think like if the robot makes a nick in the wall, then it's out the door. Like I just can't imagine the level of trust that I would have to build up to make that happen. But there is a lot of places in like semi-structured environments like you're describing, where there is a lot of potential for some form of automation at scale, but also in human-centered environment to take place.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in many of these spaces, like they are a little bit more structured in the sense that they're usually made for like big wide aisles and things like that, but there's still plenty of human interaction in those spaces. If you go into retail, then that's even closer to interacting with customers and people that are not even employees. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity in many different spaces that are extremely diverse, extremely hard, and that would help us actually make a lot of progress before getting to that. And then there's a lot of work that needs to happen in order to just build robots that are trustworthy. And even in those spaces, you need to be working into that. So there's a lot of research happening there that needs to advance it.
I love that this AI revolution that we're in is being driven to a large extent by chatbots and language and intelligence that is expressed in human language, not in code. How much of that language-driven perspective on AI is going to have an impact on the robotics world, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love it too. You know, my past has been working a lot on natural language processing and speech, and I think that basically robots being able to speak in natural language just makes it a lot more human, a lot more interpretable. And humans just simply will relate and be able to task and use the robots more intuitively. So that is just awesome to see. I think multimodality will have a big role because us humans are also using all our senses at the same time, right? So I think we need to advance the technology quite a bit in terms of multimodal understanding. And a lot of the models now are doing that. But let's think about how humans communicate. There's like so much social cues and so much like subtlety in how we communicate with each other. I think robots are still far from that. So there's a lot of work to get there.
Going into the autonomous driving space, it's been fascinating to me how much the social cue aspect has been important to making cars be able to drive in the real world, where you have other road users that are interacting with it and are taking their cue from what you're doing. So you want to sort of be able to communicate what you're doing, not just do it. And it's been fascinating to see this interplay of how people have adapted to autonomous cars being in the environment and how the cars are adapting to human cues. There is a lot of back and forth. It's been difficult, I think, in robotics at large and robotic manipulation to have that degree of deep interaction with humans. And there's a lot of HLI research that's happening, but I feel like there is another level of HLI that could really sort of be opened up with this kind of modern approach to multimodal models, language-driven robotics, and things like this. How much are you looking into HRI at large?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wish we had more time to spend more time on HRI. I think that area is about to also go through a transformation. I mean, it's already starting. These foundation models are all of a sudden able to understand humans to a new level, understand multimodal cues, and so we need to be leveraging them a lot more on HRI, and we need to be advancing them in order to like get stronger at understanding human dynamics, which today they don't. Today is still, our multimodal understanding is pretty basic. They understand where humans are, they can interpret the objects in the scene. I don't know that they're that good at understanding that someone is cueing you to pass in front of them, for example. So I think there's a lot more work to be done in that area, and then also to leverage it in robotics. So I think we need to be investing a lot more on that. And yeah, I'm curious, how do you guys do this human-robot interaction in the context of Waymo? What does that mean to you guys?
It means a lot, right? We have a lot of users that are passively interacting with the car, in a sense. You know, if you're a pedestrian trying to cross the street, you're essentially cueing the car that the car should give way. But there's also a lot of active intervention from, for example, emergency personnel, police, that is actively guiding where, you know, and asking the car to go one way or to stop.
Oh, so you're actually understanding those gestures, and then, that's very cool.
It's an important piece of being a good citizen in the world.
There's another one.
It's very important for us to understand the gestures and what people try to communicate to us, in particular in the context of emergency personnel, police, when there is an incident scene or a road closure or things like this. We need to be able to respond. That's part of the rules of the road, but also part of becoming a good citizen of the road and being respectful of the environment and understanding at the sufficient depth what is being communicated to the car.
Can I ask you something? Do you actually understand the cues when the cars are actually trying to get into an intersection? You know, like a human would understand intent based on that? Is that something that is considered today?
What's fascinating about this is that the way we model that interaction is a little bit like a conversation. Right? It's very similar to a language-driven conversation. It's a visual conversation where you move forward, another agent moves forward or stops, and that interplay is very much like a dialogue or a multi-way dialogue between all the agents on the scene, and we model it directly like we would be modeling a language-driven conversation. This really enables us to apply basically all the techniques that have been developed for chatbots, language models, multimodal models, and follow the same kind of approaches. We can follow the same scaling laws as a result of that mapping. So a lot of the robot interaction really it still follows this metaphor of actions being just a different language. It's robotese as a language, and we're able to leverage that, all the same kind of AI advances. Say you were starting a PhD in robotics today. What do you think are the big gaps? What do you think a new student today should be focused on?
Like I said, I think there's definitely still some breakthroughs that need to happen in order for this to be truly scalable and powerful to the general level that is needed in order for robots to be interacting with us the way humans do. So I would say, one of the big areas is just learning from without robots. So how can robots learn from looking at videos, from looking at humans interacting? There's also a lot of work needed in order to learn from your own experience. I think there's obviously a lot of work happening on reinforcement learning to get there, but learning from your own experience in the job, in the wild, is still needs a lot of work. And then, what we talked about, being able to understand and behave in a way that is socially acceptable, and so all the aspects of human-robot interaction, and what does it mean to be a robot in a society where you're basically interacting in the human space and understanding all the social cues associated with it. So all of those are really cool areas that still need a lot of work. Even when you see all those amazing videos where we're doing really highly dexterous and highly general things, there's still a lot of work to make it so that you can really do any new thing. So that you can, I think the holy grail is that the robot can see a completely new, like a kid folding an origami, and then it can just repeat it because it understands what actually happened there. So that's, where there's still a lot of work there. That's what I would do. Either one of those, they're all great.
I always want a robot that can, have you seen those kids that have, that are on YouTube that have 3 different Rubik's Cube?
Oh,
and
yeah.
that are juggling them while they're solving them?
That's just, I don't even know how humans can do that.
To me, that's the holy grail of robotics. The day we can get to that level, I think we're done.
We can retire then.
If you were on the job market today and you wanted to work on robotics and sort of benefit from this wave of interest that's happening and build a career in robotics, what kind of skills do you think are the most in demand right now?
I think definitely the ultimate skill is to be just hungry for learning, because the field is moving just so fast that I don't think anyone learned in their PhD exactly what we're working on today. So there's just keeping up with the field is super important. Having the right fundamentals around learning and deep learning, around all the math that grounds all of that, optimization, things like that. So I still think that people should learn all the fundamentals of computer science and all the fundamentals of machine learning, but the field is going to continue to move so fast that the biggest thing is to be able to be constantly learning from what's happening in the space.
What about
and it's a challenge, even for us.
Yeah. On the hardware side?
On the hardware side. So the hardware is evolving, and obviously you can see I am more on the learning side than the hardware side, but the hardware is evolving incredibly fast. I think that actually it would be one of the cool areas that we need to be evolving more is using other sensors. So us humans use tactile sensing, for example, and we have a skin that actually gives us enormous amount of feedback, and robots today don't actually leverage that. So I think that that's a super interesting area to be exploring, that we're just barely starting to scratch the surface if someone was excited to work on that.
So the place we're going to get coffee is Dynamo Donuts and Coffee. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No,
They're
actually.
a staple of the Mission. They're on 24th Street at the heart of the historical Mission district. It's donuts, but
Nice.
It's not any donuts that you've ever had. They're very special and very different, and they have its own coffee.
I am so excited. So I actually haven't eaten anything.
You have just released a new version of Gemini Robotics. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, we're very excited. I mean, this new version is essentially bringing agents into Gemini Robotics. So this more agentic version of our model. Gemini Robotics is our visual language action model, which enables robots to do things in a very general, very interactive, and very dexterous way. So you could ask a robot, make me a sandwich, or put all the objects in their corresponding places, and you can understand what you mean by that. In this release, what we're doing is, by bringing agentic into it, is that now the robot is going to be able to reason over long horizon tasks. What that means is that it can do something much more complex that require many different actions, and it can also use tools. So for example, you can ask it, prepare me something to wear for tomorrow, and it can look up the weather and then can actually decide what to do in order to complete the task that you're asking. So it's a lot more agentic. It's also a lot more general, because we're now actually able to learn more from many different data sources. We're observing some positive transfer from videos, from simulation, so that helps us create more general models. And then we're also able to use thinking. So now the VLA can actually leverage thinking in order to improve its answer. So the same way that when kids are doing a math problem, they actually explain their steps, and that helps them get to a better answer. Now these models are able to leverage thinking in order to actually get to a better set of actions that completes the task. So we are observing higher generalization levels, and then tasks that are much longer, like several minutes long, as opposed to just a minute long.
So now your robots have access to the web and can do web searches. I think I've seen that movie. How do you make sure that you maintain a level of safety, of agentic safety, in the context of a physical robot?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we absolutely are basically running the same safety evals that we do for any agent that is on the web doing things. I think for robots, it's actually much more constrained. Like, we only give it access to certain tools, and the user has the capacity to decide which tools it can use. It also only is relevant in the context of the task that it's trying to do. So it's only going to gather information. It's not going to go and click into your email and delete all your emails or something like that. Nothing like that at the moment. Definitely with each feature, we want to make sure that when we adapt it to the physical world, we not only keep all of the safety measures that have been done very thoroughly on any of the Gemini releases, because at the end of the day, these are Gemini models. So we ensure that we retain those safety measures, but we also make sure that we evaluate them in the context of the physical world. So we do auto red teaming, and we have many different, So in auto red teaming, what we do is that we basically put an adversarial model to attack the existing model. So it's basically two AIs talking to each other. One is trying to trip the other one. And that helps us discover vulnerabilities, which then we can address by creating examples like that in the training data that we can then ensure that the model responds the right way.
You also put out a benchmark around semantic safety.
We're actually upgrading that benchmark in this release as well. We're going Asimov benchmark 2.0. And in this benchmark, we actually are not only including images and text of tricky situations that the robot has to reason about, but we also have videos. So we can now leverage VO models to generate videos of really tricky physical situations, so they don't actually have to happen. Basically, the model can imagine a tricky situation and then reason how to act in that.
Give me an example of a tricky situation.
Whoa, so one that was really impressive to me was the model imagine a kid playing with cables and plugging them into a wall, and it looks incredibly realistic. And then you can answer questions about what could go wrong in this situation, and then reason about all the things that you should be doing. And in many cases, it's like even proactive safety, so like get help, right? Or intervene in some way. So yeah, there's lots of examples like that that we're now generating, and that helps us just evaluate a lot more options without actually having to physically be in that environment.
And so that's one of the main uses of generative video and world modeling today, is generating those kinds of things. This is a very interesting area for autonomous driving as well, because there are a lot of scenes, possible scenes that we never want to experience in an autonomous car, an accident or very complex scenarios where the car might be at risk. But we want to be able to simulate them so that we can actually reason about what would happen if, hoping that it never happens, but not something that that we want to still protect our users against.
Exactly. So now we actually have a reasoning model, which we are upgrading to be state-of-the-art in embodied reasoning benchmarks externally and internally, and that is now going to be available in preview. And we're also making the Gemini Robotics actions model available in simulation. So now everyone could actually go to a browser and experience it, even if you don't have a robot. So that should actually help people understand the power of these models.
So we see a lot of research papers on sensing and tactile sensing and things like this. What's the gap? Why don't we see them in production today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also learning about this space, and the main thing is I just don't see the reliability and the consistency of the sensors. And also, as these robots is experiencing the world, those sensors evolve over time. Like, actually the physical materials change the response over time. So I think there's still a lot of work on that, and also on the learning side. We honestly just haven't spent enough time actually figuring out how to learn from even more signals than what we are today. Today, we're basically very, very focused on vision input, on obviously audio and speech, but not yet on sensing. And there's a lot of work in academia, but it's still far from being a requirement. Like today, all of the best policies are still not using tactile sensing, for example. But they're limited in what they can do, right?
A counterpoint to that is that I've seen amazing videos of like setups like Aloha that comes from your lab, where the level of dexterity that can be achieved with just camera as a sensor is impressive.
Yeah.
We see robots tying shoelaces, folding napkins, and doing all sorts of things. Do you think there is a future in which just using camera perception will yield a lot of the benefits that we would otherwise think a tactile sensor would be?
Yeah, we've been very surprised by how much you can do without tactile sensing, and how how dexterous the skills that we can learn with just visual input. I still think that there's going to be a boundary that we're going to hit. We just haven't gotten to those tasks just yet. But there's a lot of examples where you actually can't even see where you're actually doing the task, where humans actually very intuitively just use tactile sensing to reach into drawers. Of course, you could imagine putting cameras in the hand, which we do have. But I believe that there's going to be a limit to that. There's also like tasks where you're actually like trying to screw something very tight, or you're actually listening for a click. We're not yet pushing the boundary on those tasks that require it, and that's why we're getting away without it. But it's been very impressive how much. I would say you can do maybe 80-90% of the task without it, but there's going to be that set of tasks that are going to require more. Maybe I'm wrong, but we have to find out.
Oh, it's interesting how the economics of robotics is evolving.
Yeah.
You have, on one hand, very bespoke, cheap robots, like the price has been going down very quickly. On the other hand, a lot of drive towards much more complex robots, many degrees of freedom, a lot more expensive overall. Where do you see the economics of robotics going in general? Do you think very competent robots are going to become cheap enough that we can have them in your home from a just pure economic standpoint? Everybody is going to be able to buy their Rosie the robot?
I do think that, I am amazed myself how fast the field is evolving, and the hardware is evolving and becoming cheaper and more capable. I can easily see a future where people are going to be able to like buy their own robot and have a robot in the household. I don't think that will be out of reach for the majority of people. It will take some time, of course. And it also comes with economy of scale, right? If everyone is actually buying these robots, then it just really brings down the cost because of the scale at which they're being deployed. But like I said, I think that it's not mainly, I'm not thinking that it's going to be driven by economics. I'm thinking it's going to be driven by efficiency. I think there is going to be a world where there will be many different robot types that are simply going to be better at doing a particular task. And so you don't have the same robot do all tasks that are possible, even though they could. Simply maybe a robot that is able to like unload a truck much faster is going to happen. It's going to have a different form factor. Or basically self-driving cars, or these are just a perfect form factor. I think there will be still a large diversity of robots, but their price overall will reduce just simply by the economy of scale and demand. So that's my hope anyway.
Very competent robots, plop a VLA onto them, and you've solved robotics.
Yeah, and a lot of work. A lot of work. A lot of years of optimizing safety and security and performance and latency, and there's going to be a lot of like elbow grease, we say.
What do you think could be the blind spots in that? Like outside of the sort of AI, VLA world, what are the other areas of robotics that you think we should be exploring more?
I think actually within even this AI-driven robots, there's a lot that is not being explored. One of them could be just simply like, how do you earn people's trust when this robot is being driven by an AI that you don't understand? So there's a lot of work on like interpretability and things like that. So anyway, I think that there's just a lot of work in like building these models in a way that is not a pure black box to the humans that are using it. I think that could be something that actually blocks the progress, because humans don't feel like they're willing to take in something they don't understand or they can't control. So there's going to be a lot of work on that. I think also a lot of work on like being able to personalize and adapt the robot the way you want it to operate, right? So that they're not just you have zero control and they just show up in your house and they do what they do. I think that the human aspect actually is one of the aspects that I think might be the most challenging.
It's been a fascinating change in perspective. We're getting very close to our destination.
We got to experience ambulances and all kinds of things.
All the excitement of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Quick rapid fire questions
Yeah.
for you. How do you take your coffee?
Ooh, I love caramel macchiatos. Those are my favorite.
What is the best road trip you've ever been on?
The best road trip. I drove around Europe actually a couple years ago with my husband. We just went around Germany and Netherlands, and it was actually just wonderful. Actually, we saw castles along the way, and yeah. So I think that's one of my favorites.
Why should I move to Colorado?
Oof. Oh, Colorado is a special place in my heart. Yeah, I think it's just the fact that you can be working in a very techy space and then go for the weekend and be over 10,000 feet and see mountains all around you is just magical. And it's incredible at like creating this balance between, you know, this mental balance between like the tech world and the nature world. I love it. It's also like super diverse. Like there's a lot of people from many different walks of life, and so that makes it super fun. Apparently the beer is great. I don't drink much beer, but there's a lot of great beer places there, and people go for that. And the sports are like everybody's a sports fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sports,
Not
like
me.
nature sports.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, no. Everybody is a sports fan from like the different, from like baseball and football and all of that. But everybody is into fitness. So like every time I go out into the mountains, I see people from all walks of life doing hiking, mountain biking, yeah, you name it.
What's the craziest thing that is on your bucket list right now?
Go to base camp in Everest. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I can go up Everest, but even the trip to base camp just seems magical. And that's already 18,000 feet, so it's already quite a long trip. I hear it's about 3 weeks, so I'm super excited to do that.
Are you?
I'm training. I'm actually doing the Colorado Trail right now.
All right.
I've done about 150 miles of the Colorado Trail, and I'm doing it every weekend. So every weekend I'm actually doing a stretch
That
right
is
now.
intense.
Yes. Like it just felt so incredibly natural. It's just crazy how far we've come. I was in these cars when they were optimizing the smoothness of the ride. Because, you know, you could get everything perfect, but if the ride was not smooth enough, if the acceleration was not smooth enough, it would actually make you sick. So we've come a really, really long way. It's very, very impressive. I think it's equally impressive when you're not in it and you're like driving next to it and you see this car go by without anyone in it. It's just amazing.
One thing that has been fascinating is the reception from other users of the road, particularly bikes. I find that because Waymo is very consistent about its
They know what to
driving
expect.
abilities and giving space to the different bike users, people really like having them as partners on the road.
Wow,
All right.
we're there.
We're there. Thank you, Waymo. Where is it all going? Like what kind of predictions can you make, you know, that would be surprising to people?
People are going to have robots in their homes. People are going to walk into stores and robots will be there. So I think that will be true. I think in many ways, like robotics forces us to push the frontier of AI. I mean, it's not only about understanding the physical world better, understanding the physics of the world better, but also being able to do all of that real time with real feedback. You also have this like AI assistants on your glasses, for example. Those AI assistants are also going to benefit from from like any kind of latency improvements that we have to do in order to make it work for robotics. We grew up in a totally different world.